I'm Marcy Lundy. Today is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, and this is the Cult of Kindness podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have a guest on that is very passionate. And as I told him before we started, I love his heart. I want to welcome welcome you, Dr. George, to the Cult of Kindness podcast.
Thank you and your viewers. First, more importantly, is just honor to meet you and to have this time together. It's very important as we get into awareness in my journey and my mother that we really, thank your audience, because we have to reach those who are not just with Parkinson's and those that aren't just caretaking for Parkinson's, but we have to reach the whole world. And, we're in some historic times now that I hope we'll get to. And again, thank you and your viewers for your time.
Yes, thank you so much. So Dr. George Ackerman is the founder of Together for Sharon. And as the Cult of Kindness podcast is all about paying it forward in love, George's mission is particularly special. So George, if you could tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about Together for Sharon.
I love the name of your show. That's kind of what I think people, sometimes they look at me like I'm losing my marbles because I just want to help people. I don't accept money. I do this all voluntary. So I spend a lot of hours. There's a lot of time I don't sleep because I'm thinking about what my mother and I went through with Parkinson's disease, but there's so many out there still struggling. So unfortunately, it's too late for my family, but it's not for everyone else. And that really, to me, is what kindness is about. But my mother unfortunately passed on 1/1/2020 due to Parkinson's disease and dementia. She had it for approximately, 15 years. It didn't affect her life as being a strong, independent woman. She lived alone. She raised me, and I always credit her. I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for her sacrifices. But the last 4 years of her life, it's kind of some reason caught up. She had gone to a special program, and I think they might have changed her medicine too drastically, but to this day, I'll never know. And that day, she came back. I was called at 4 a.m. to rush over to her house, and I found her moving her furniture out of her home, thinking somebody was inside that was going to harm her. And that's when the dementia set in. A lot of time, Parkinson's is important to discuss because it's different for every person. So my mother ended up getting dementia. A lot of people do not. They also say you can live with Parkinson's, for a long time. You don't die of it, you die with it. But my mother didn't have any other medical issues. So that was the start of really, unfortunately, me getting thrown in like the wolves to the world of caretaking. I wouldn't change anything. I always dreamt to make sure I just don't regret missing out on something. And, I know I tried everything. And even today, 2024, we have so much more knowledge, research, and progress to finding a cure. And that's my goal is, again, I won't rest literally till we find a cure for everybody else.
Thank you for that work. And first I'm thinking of Parkinson's as challenging, and then adding the aspect of dementia. Were you her sole caregiver?
Yeah, I kind of didn't have a choice, but I was up for the choice. My father and mother were divorced. He lived in New York. I have a brother, but he wasn't able to care for her. And I just had obviously to step up. And I was always kind of took care of her before this anyway. I always look back and wonder, I'm actually writing my book, finished it actually, hopefully soon, but it's about her journey and mine as caretaker. But I always think back when I was writing, wonder either she didn't really understand, fully grasp what Parkinson's was, or that just no one really knew at that point. Because now today I'm finding out you can do a lot of things. Parkinson's is a movement disorder. It affects the neurodegenerative, affects the brain, so it kind of slowly, progressively takes over. Also, a lot of people, like I said, are just treated in a weird way differently. My mother didn't have the external tremors like Michael J. Fox, the famous actor, does from the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Ironically, not to get off topic, but I'm meeting him in February 2nd. So that's been like it's been a lifelong dream to meet Michael J. Fox, because he started the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And he's just really changing the world for awareness. He didn't have to do that. there are other actors, unfortunately, who just, and I respect them. They want to be private and quiet,
Sure.
but if we don't all speak up like anything, you're never going to bring change.
Um,
So some of the symptoms for Parkinson's also, again, the tremors, rigidity, so muscle stiffness, bradykinesia, and also instability. And the scary thing is if you never want someone to fall, because that's when, you start going downward. My mother just had a little less use of her left arm, like it was stiff, but she was still
yeah.
able to, function. But again, towards that, when we hit that 4 years, everything kind of went downhill.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, first, that's incredible to be able to meet Michael J. Fox. I saw his documentary, I want to say maybe in the fall.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing how open and raw he is about showing, the ups and the downs. And it's such an eye opener. So, you know, thank goodness for people like him as well as you that bring that to our attention. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Parkinson's unfortunately doesn't have a cure.
Right, not yet. And that's something I was excited today because just like we were speaking earlier,
Mhm.
it's famous to me, but there's a bill that we've never had anything, and I don't know why for Parkinson's disease in the U.S. Well,
Right.
last December, just a month ago, they finally passed the first bill in U.S. history called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease. And I
Oh,
was lucky enough to be asked by Michael. Everybody was involved. So the nice thing is moving forward, it passed the House, but it still has to go to the Senate. So your listeners, you and me
yeah.
can all contact our senators and tell them, demand that we're strapped for time because people are
Mhm.
suffering that they can actually call their senator and say, I want to support or want you to support the End Parkinson's Bill national plan. It's going to dramatically increase federal funding for
Mhm.
research. It's going to also help develop pathways for treatment. Going to improve early diagnosis, which is important because if there are people who are actually misdiagnosed, which that's very bad, they can be given the wrong medicines. Also,
Right.
it'll spark new models for patient care, create standards to prevent Parkinson's, address inequality in health and treatment throughout the U.S., and finally, again, awareness. So I was really honored to speak to one of the representatives, Paul Tonka. I think he's
Mhm.
a Democrat from New York, and he was one of the main sponsors of the bill. So that'll be coming out a podcast soon. But it was, it's just great to see other people out there fighting. And he didn't have anyone in his family affected by it, but he has friends,
Mhm.
constituents, and just honestly speaking to you here live, we're actually, going through history. So next year I'm praying it'll pass and then, it's going to change the world for people who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's,
Yeah.
caretakers, and for scientists trying to find the cure that we don't have right now.
Oh, that's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. It's too late, unfortunately, like I said, from me and my family, but I never
Mm.
know if I can get it. We don't know to this day why people get it. They think it could be not really genetics, but maybe from the pesticides and the things that are sprayed in our homes.
Oh
My
my.
mother had a nice home, but she really didn't keep up with it, and it had mold, had bugs, termites, and who knows 10, 15 years ago what they sprayed in the home. So
Yeah.
I really am a strong believer. Also, it helps to have good exercise is very important. Nutrition, not just for Parkinson's, for everyone, but you have to do at least 40 minutes of exercise a day. It'll slow down the progression of the disease, and that really is important.
Exactly. As her caregiver, what did you do to help yourself when dealing with something that's so emotionally taxing?
Yeah, that's funny because we don't. I always want to concentrate so much on my mom that we forget about me, the caretaker. I was
Mhm.
shocked to point out, and I'll be speaking at a summit, but it's really on the topic of male caregivers, and I didn't even realize that there's no either there's no male caregivers or they're just really shy or quiet. But I'm not. My mother was my best friend. I always say
Oh,
I'm a mama's boy. I used to call her 7 times a day. She was the
oh,
first person, when I met my wife, told her about when there was the things like 9/11. I'm from New York. When that happened, I called her first.
mm,
It's everything we called her first. So it's, even today it's tough. She raised me on music like Barry Manilow, Kenny G, and Lionel Richie.
Oh,
And I
great.
just saw it just a few months ago. We saw Lionel Richie live here in Florida, and
Mhm.
I had so much fun. But I, wanted to call my mother and tell her about it. And again, unfortunately, I couldn't. So, we just continue to push on. Never forget her. But I've learned, I meet people like you and your audience become like family. I don't think this is just a podcast and then put on the shelf and goodbye. I think this becomes more than that. My career before the advocacy was I was a lawyer, prosecutor, worked there. Then I became a police officer, and then I did my PhD. My dissertation was actually on aiding African American mothers who lost their loved one due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. A lot of the
Mhm.
time, the criminal justice system everywhere in the U.S. forgets about the family members. So, I dedicated my life to victims, but I kind of correlate, victims being Parkinson's patients and caregivers, because until last year or this year, and we still haven't had it passed, there's been nothing really to support them in the United States. And,
Mhm.
it's just tragic.
It is. In
So,
December, I was talking, pardon me, a lot about uh, the gift of paying it forward in love and the gift of, receiving through your giving. And just hearing how much you've done for the community, your heart is really just dedicated to helping. That's beautiful.
thanks. And one more funny, we do a lot of walks for Parkinson's where we'll raise money, but it goes to the either the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the American Parkinson's Disease Association, or Parkinson's Foundation. So it's great because I don't have to deal with all the money and stuff. So we actually donated about 8,000, but we've raised about $13,000 in 3 years, 4 years, and it all
Wow.
went right. It goes to programs and helping for awareness, but we'll go to a walk or two this year. I'm finally going to our first event with Michael J. Fox in Florida. They don't
Mm.
come a lot, unfortunately, but so we'll have a table, and it's just me and my mother's story, and we don't want anything. We're not selling anything, and there'll be a
Yeah.
lot of pharmaceutical companies around me. So people walk by and they're kind of timid and scared to come over because they think we're selling something. But then,
Sure.
I had one gentleman who realized what we're doing, came over, and he started crying and thanked us. And I don't want anything in return but a cure, but that was like, really felt like the kindness was coming through there. I feel like I should be saying kindness on all our talk because that's a really important word that no one really, I've done a lot of these, no one's used the word kindness. It's
Yeah, that's
uh,
beautiful. And I love that you just give away the bracelets. You
yeah.
refuse to accept cash. That's beautiful.
Yeah, we used to do more of it. We kind of stopped just because I paid for everything. It was getting costly. But we do do
Mhm.
it at the live events, but I don't really send them anywhere because I was getting requests around the world and that was just too
Oh,
expensive.
wow.
When my mother passed away, I was shocked. I didn't even expect it. So my wife
Mm.
and I decided, why not make a few, like 20 bands, give it to people who attend the funeral. Well, at the time he wasn't, but my brother-in-law now, he took a
Yeah.
picture with the band and didn't have his face, so it's just his hand in the band. And as a
Mhm.
lawyer and a cop, I'm like, well, why don't I do this but not put my face in? Because people like privacy. So I would
Sure.
go to like Disney World, I go to the basketball court, anywhere I went, I would just have the band, and it was basically
Uh,
showing that my mother was still with me. Somehow
I,
it went viral. Yeah, it went viral, and Willie Geist's wife from NBC wore it. People like
oh,
big, it was just amazing. And luckily it died down because again, it got very expensive. But it was a great experience, and that was what started Together for Sharon.com. And today it's
mm,
just become. I thought a few people would look at it, and now we've had like over 20, 30,000 people like following, and I don't even know how or why, but it's definitely a great feeling.
yeah. Well, I think that when people, even something as simple as raising your wrist and having this band on, people really appreciate that because in this world, the things we're dealing with these days, people question, is humanity still existing?
Yeah.
And it's simple acts like that that give people hope and they're so happy to be a part of.
You mentioned earlier what it does to the caretaker, and I just have, I mean, it brings not just for the caretaker. I mean, in a way, I felt like I also had secondary Parkinson's. Obviously, I didn't have what was going on, but I went through, horrific things from depression to difficulty where my mother, she was having trouble speaking, walking. She went from being a person who liked to walk to a cane, from a cane to a walker, from a walker to a wheelchair, from a wheelchair to bedbound. And seeing that is just, I felt burnt out, stressed. I couldn't see my children and wife. Thankfully, I had a very supportive wife even today. She's amazing. But sleep problems, my mother had a lot of pain, fatigue, even we can have a whole podcast on stomach issues. And all those
Mm.
things kind of, they kind of transferred to me. And then I had, gastric acid reflux and things because from stress. So, it's not like the caretaker's just having a grand old time, but you fight, you have your own fight, you have your own struggle. But the worst thing was holding my mother's hand and not being able to tell her when if she'll be able to be there for my daughter's, wedding, and even talking, I'm 6'2", 200 pounds in law enforcement, but talking about this sometimes it's very still tough, even though it's been 4 years. I think a lot of my grieving is still being done through talking with you, through
Sure.
something else, there's just a lot of things that push me to continue. And there are about 1 million people in the U.S. with Parkinson's, and I only discovered a few months ago last year there's about 10 million people around the world with Parkinson's. So I decided, about, thinking about Together for Sharon, it wasn't about just me and my mother anymore. It was about everybody. So what I
Yeah.
decided to embark on was my own journey, and I was able, thankfully, somehow, with perseverance, never giving up. I've interviewed 400 or 500 people around the world, from Italy, France, Spain, Iceland, India, Africa, you name it. I've done it, Australia, and those people either were diagnosed or they were the foundations for awareness or scientists. So I met with some of the top researchers in the world to discuss Parkinson's. And look, my exciting thing every day is if you go to Together for Sharon and you just
Yeah.
you can click interviews and you scroll down, you'll see a picture here. But every day, a new story comes up of a new person that I interviewed. And this story
Mm.
was, she just wrote a book on Parkinson's, on high intensity exercise and managing and reducing Parkinson. And that's Christine Meldrum. So if I had somebody, it's funny the other day, I didn't imagine that. He's like, I spent 10 hours on your website. I'm like, I
Oh,
want you to, I
wow.
want you to read it, but don't spend your whole day. But it was really it was beautiful because, people need to know that number one, they're never alone, because I felt
Yeah.
alone. Number two, there are others out there. And even your viewers, if they have Parkinson's, I share their journeys for free. Again, people again are shocked that you could be kind and do it, but everything was complete free. I probably put in 4,000 hours, but it just meant the world to me. And now we're going to probably put that in a book too. So there's a lot of big things coming in the future. Again, it's such a need out there. I did a lot of research too. And I didn't see any books on, a son who lost a mother to Parkinson. So I
Mm.
decided I had kept a journal. It was very intimate, dark and sad and positive, but of every day the last year of my mother's life. So I retold that in a book, and not supposed to talk about it, but I'm really excited. I really feel in the next few months it'll be out.
Oh, wow. So the book is based on your journal entries? My goodness.
Yeah, it's a mixture. It's really about my mother, so her life, what she did for her sacrifices, and then my life journey with as her caretaker. But weaved within it, it's going to be memories, hopefully many pictures of my mother and I through the years before Parkinson. It also have a chapter on advocacy, like we're doing, and what I'm planning for the future, and how everyone can get involved, and not just the. It's just incredible. A lot of movements, you just read about, you can't do anything right now.
Yeah.
Again, all your viewers and you can be part of history, literally. And I have nothing to do. It's just incredible timing. And there's also a lot of things. People with Parkinson's can go into trials. There's a lot of volunteers needed, because the more trials and things we do, the closer we are to a cure. And there's just, again, we don't have the time. There's so many areas, that we can discuss. And I'm no expert. My PhD, again, is in criminal justice. But when you go through all this, some of the toughest things is really coping with it. And, even my individuals, the mothers I interviewed when I was doing my dissertation on family members of homicide victims, my big question was, how did they cope? A lot of them believed in faith and that was how they were able to reintegrate themselves back into society. But if you don't
Yeah.
have that strong support, people like you in my life, I don't think I would really make it. So again, I know I thank you, but I'm grateful again for our time today.
Oh, yes, my goodness, absolutely. Uh, Speaking of the bracelet a few minutes ago, personally, I definitely want to get one and I want to share that. And can you please tell the Cult of Kindness audience where they can get the bracelets?
Yeah, like I said, unfortunately, I tried to stop it just because it's expensive. But for you, of course, you'll get one. All you have to do is send me an email to togetherforsharon@gmail.com. If you look at togetherforsharon.com, you'll see it. But again, I don't want to ask for money. So each one costs, from $5 to $10. And after you take like 1,000 people, it gets costly. But I do, it's nice when people, will donate on my mother's memory and her memory to these foundations, not to me. One time, I always tell the story. Someone at a walk gave me $5. I said, "Look, I don't want it. It's not why I'm here." So they wouldn't take it back. So I rushed home after the walk. I donated to the Parkinson's Foundation, got a receipt, sent it to him. So, that
Oh,
again, well, we're not in this for money. And it's
yeah,
sad again in 2024, you must have a lot of great, guests, but I don't know how many of them have this trouble. But sometimes I feel like I'm struggling to explain that I don't want anything in return. And it's
yeah,
sad in 2024. I guess unfortunately we've had some bad people with scans and this and that. But the cool thing is, again, I'm not asking for anything. So
yeah,
I have to, it's a struggle constantly when I tell someone I want to share your journey, I want nothing in return. The people who do it are in heaven and we become friends, family. People who
yeah.
don't are, it's kind of sad. And I always say, the only journey that breaks my heart is the one that I don't know about. So,
Wow, I love that. Yeah, it's funny and sad because
yeah,
people always say, well, what's the gimmick?
all right.
Uh, I know I'll have to pay somewhere down the line. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's
And I,
it's from
Yeah, the nice thing is if you or your audience go I'm sure you already checked it out, but if you go to togetherforsharon.com,
yes.
you'll be able to see all the interviews. There's nowhere on here does it say, you have to pay here. We don't do that. You'll see about us, so you'll see our story. Actually, something exciting too just started is I'm in a weird place as well. I don't have Parkinson's, and I'm
Right.
not currently a caretaker with a person alive. So what I did is again, I researched a lot. I looked because I needed support. I wanted a group where I can go and meet other people. There was nothing because I went to a few and they were for people who had Parkinson's, living. So I
Mhm.
wasn't going
Yeah.
to go there and talk about wills and then delay. I don't want to, have everyone crying. So
Yeah.
thankfully, there's an organization called PSP and they do awareness. They've actually, and it's all free. They don't pay me. But next month, February, I'm excited to say the first time we're offering my own support group. It's also
Mhm.
offered throughout the whole world on Zoom. It's private, confidential, it will not be taped, so it won't exist really. And it's for
Yeah.
anybody, not just for parts, for anyone who's lost a loved one due to some type of disease. It could be dementia, Parkinson's, cancer. There's so many unfortunately out there. I just wanted a safe place for people for free to join us, and you can go on to Together for Sharon. You click about us and the support group. They just added it today. I was surprised I saw it, and that's there. Also, our story is there. More about the national plan, the act for Parkinson. And then we
Right.
also have people who have made artwork. I don't know. They're so amazing. They send me
Yeah.
artwork from my mother. We have
Mhm.
interviews, donated, and it's getting too big for me. And also, I want to make sure everybody knows that Together for Sharon is just me. It's like people think we're a corporation. It's not. It's not a foundation. I wanted
Yeah.
it just to be me and just a web. I didn't want to turn into a foundation because again, it's really just I'm a son who lost a mother who was my best
Mhm.
friend, and that's all it is. We don't again want money. We don't nothing else but a cure. I wish I had a cure for my mother. And
Yeah.
that's a thing that haunts me all the time is, looking your any loved one or friend in the face and not being able to assure them. I never lied to her. I never told her the wrong thing. I just said I don't know. And
Mhm.
there wasn't a day or a moment or second that I didn't try. And we tried everything. We tried caretakers because I couldn't be there 24/7. We moved her closer. We even bought a new house, which I'm in now. We have a room for her. Unfortunately, she didn't make it. We tried medical licensed marijuana, which was a whole, I could write a book on that because I'm a cop. So I was
I'm
petrified,
sure.
even though it
Yeah.
was legal. I thought there were video cameras everywhere. I'm like, there's not,
Yeah.
so, I wanted to help her and she was in pain. So I would have done anything legal. But,
Yeah.
and those are the things that kind of still, unfortunately, haunt me today.
Mm. Oh my gosh. As I was just doing research before the episode, I found myself thinking, and it's fine to cry, but I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to get through it without
Uh,
crying?
I don't
Yeah.
want you to. I kind of bring some positive in this darkness. Again, I'm meeting you again. I hope, and also if you ever have you want to share your journey and your show, I would like. It's just I email you something. If you send me after anyone out there listening, I would share their journey. Doesn't have to be Parkinson, and
Yeah.
But again, the people, the 500 I've met, the people. We just started our own little podcast. It's every third Thursday and it's the first one ever. I keep saying that, but it's true. You can go research it. I have
Great.
never seen a podcast where it brings a caretaker with people who have Parkinson's. So it's three people I've become very close with who are really big on social media. All three of them have Parkinson's disease, and it's called early onset. So they're only in their 40s, like almost my age, but they have
Yeah.
to live with part. So, and then there's me, the caretaker. So we get
Yeah.
on like we're doing, we just have a fun time and talk. But it's like, we're starting new things that are changing the world. And again, it's just a time to have a conversation like we're doing, but with people who are actually going through it. It's not easy, because I'm the caretaker, but I'm going to be a realist. It doesn't mean I won't get Parkinson someday, or
Great.
sadly, even your listeners. But,
Yeah.
we try to, again, the message is the positive one that there there are positives that come from this. Don't ever feel like you're alone. Don't stay home. You have the computer now. Go to Together for Sharon. When I was going through this, I was so lost. So I put all the
Mm.
big organizations from Michael J. Fox to, I don't know if you're a basketball fan, but there's a
Yeah.
very famous NBA player named Brian Grant who used to
Yeah.
play he has Parkinson's and he's still young. They have the
Yeah.
Brian Grant Foundation. And so I
Oh,
listed all like 40 or 50. I even have organizations again from around the world, Parkinson's UK, Parkinson's Canada. Unfortunately, it's everywhere, Australia. So you can just go to the website again for free and you can, research it. Everybody's right there. And, it's just another resource for people that's free, completely free.
absolutely. And I think it's beautiful that you started a podcast to continue the
Right.
conversation.
I'm not an expert like you are with your podcast, but I'm trying. I like the interviews that I did. A lot of them, it's just email. So I'll send the interview, they'll send it back. I'll put all the magic, and I have a web team that makes it come to life. That was easier because again, it's just me. So to handle 500 people is not easy. What I love about podcasts is you get to see the person, you get to hear them, and you get
Yes.
to realize they're human beings. And I don't have that with my interviews because, they're just on the email.
Yes.
Of course, you see a picture, but it's not the same. The only problem with podcasts, as you know, is the scheduling and the time, and it's not
Yeah.
an easy thing. But I find when I'm doing it, I love it, and then when I'm done, I feel like uh, I don't know if it's butterflies, like when you meet your loved one,
Oh,
but you
yeah.
get a great, great feeling like we just did something amazing. So I
Oh,
love podcasts, and it's nice that everybody can start their own, but mine's always going to be kind of homegrown, small. Luckily, I have a beautiful team that puts an intro and conclusion, but they'll make it kind of look cool. Like I had them. If you ever have time, check it out. At the end of it, no one ever stays for the ending for movies, but I have actual like credits, like a movie.
oh, I love
So
it.
it's funny. So anyway, but yeah, I have a few It's like becoming our own channel, but I have the Together for Sharon podcast where it's actually my wife and I. So now you have the female perspective. So
Yeah.
she's amazing. Yeah, she was my mother's caretaker too. So it's
Mm.
cool because we interview people, but she'll speak a lot, and it's just I love listening to them all talking too. So then I have Q&A with Sharon's son, which is just me and the people in the community, and I interview them about their books that they released, or like the congressman today. And then I have as unscripted with my friends who have Parkinson. But I always, again, like to do other shows like yours because, again, I might reach people in the community, but again, we'll never find a cure. It's horrible to say it unless we get everyone in the world in on this. And again, I've always been told we have to keep pushing home that it's so urgent because we
Yeah.
sit here and we sign off later, we go back to our lives. There are people who are really, suffering. They can't eat, can't sleep, they can't even live, they can't enjoy their own families' memories because of this disease. And I find that, again, I feel that we could definitely have a cure soon. As you can see with COVID, they were able to miraculously not find a cure, but find a vaccine. I really feel in my heart that we could have already cured this. My mother would have been sitting next to me, and it
Mhm.
didn't happen. But that's what it is.
Yes. And we have to do the work. And something that I think is so important is uh, a lot of times my husband and I will talk about people don't really become passionate about something until it affects them.
Yeah.
And just hearing your story and what you've done throughout life, you've been someone that becomes involved regardless. And that says so much about your character.
I think it's important to be honest. So I want to tackle tough topics. I started a blog. I feel like I'm telling you, it just happened to all happen.
Yeah.
A lady I became young, not young. I like to call everyone young woman, but she, ironically, we became friends on Facebook, and I have every social media. So anyone listening could find. I don't know how I got into all that, but we have everything under together at the Sharon.com. You scroll down, you'll see them all. But
Mhm.
her name's Betsy, and some
Okay.
reason she found me. Her husband passed away with Alzheimer's the identical day my mother passed away from Parkinson's. So I
Oh,
don't know how, it's like crazy that we found each other, but she's become like a mentor. So we just started our George and Betsy's blog where every month we're going to tackle tough topics. This month we're
mhm.
tackling, I think it was death with dignity.
Oh,
Unfortunately, the last seven, Florida doesn't have that act. Some states do. I'm not sure what state are you in?
I'm in Colorado.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the laws there, but my mother, she was very sick, but the last 7 days of her life, she didn't even do it. She just had a heartbeat. She wasn't able to communicate. She didn't even eat. She didn't drink. It was just horrific. And I would have used something like we didn't have it. So me and Betsy are going to talk about tough topics, which people won't, like end of life. Next month, we're talking about medical marijuana license. Then we're going to talk about wills. So it's just a blog, but it's another thing that just gives people an opportunity to read and hear it from us who have been through this.
Yes, beautiful. Uh, George, I would love to work with you,
Yes.
past this podcast. I'm so impressed with all the work that you're doing, and I definitely would love to be a part of it as well.
I would love to continue this. And, there's so many issues out there that this, brings people together. I mean, like I said, sitting here talking, and when you talk, could think of 400 more topics. And we, because I'm a big person too, even with, every culture, race, being able to have access to these types of medicines. It's not fair if one individual, due to their population or geographic location, can get medicine and others don't. One of the
Right.
touching stories, I did an article, obviously it's not here, we can't do much, but we can bring awareness is it's called Parkinson's Africa, and I made a few friends there. But they have a tough time. They think if you have Parkinson's that it's witchcraft. So there's a
Oh,
stigma. That's a stigma that needs to be removed because the people can't get, medicine. They can't get help because of that. So by us talking about it, by me doing a story, I made a friends with some of the people from the organization. And,
mhm.
just talking about it today, someone might learn about them and donate. So just amazing. There's so many organizations that need help. Again, my big pitch again is that I don't want anything go help the other or, everyone else. But there's just so many stories that I wish we could have the time, but you can all find them on togetherforsharon.com.
Wonderful. Well, George, thank you so much for your selfless work, uh, your sense of connecting with others and continuing the mission. It's so important. And, that is what Cult of Kindness is about, just all of us coming together and making a difference. And you're really doing that. Thank you.
I really appreciate you and the audience too. And again, I hope continues on to the future. I do have one little thing I always say at the end if we're wrapped up. this is coming from me, but I would say we, I don't know, it's me and my wife, but we love you. We support you. We care about you, and you're never alone. I'll advocate for you, and together, as you know, our voices are so much stronger. And I always say this, it's not true, but I love to say it, and I'm just getting started. So, this is not going to end here. I'm just going to keep fighting. I'm going to spend a lot of sleepless nights, but until we get that bill passed, till we get the law and the president to sign it, and until we finally find a cure, that my job's not done. I always ask my daughter, she's only 11 now, is she going to continue Together for Sharon.com on? And then before I think about it, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want it to continue on. I want it to have a cure and be able to end it all. And obviously, I'll still have it up for my mother and me, but it's tough knowing, again, everybody out there. And we have other issues, other diseases, and that's why I also try to now shed light on others. It's not just about Parkinson's. I wish we could end everything, but being on a show where one of the keywords is kindness, is unique, rare, and important to me. And it's the first time, again, I've been in a show with the word kindness in it. And I just wish everybody, would be kind to one another, whether it's here, there, or anywhere. It's just, if we all work together, we all support each other, even strangers, and the world will be a better place. So again, I want to thank you and your listeners. And again, I consider you a family, and thank you so much for the time today. Thank you.
Oh, of course, George. It's beautiful. I am almost lost for words. It's just, I really appreciate the work you're doing in your heart. It's inspired me to do even more. So just a big thank you to you.
Thank you too, and for all you do. I appreciate it.
All right, all. Please visit togetherforsharon.com and learn more about George and his mission and his story, and become a part of making a difference on a greater level. All right, I love you all. Thank you, George. Take care.